All right, this is Mike from Spotlight on Ukraine. I would like to welcome Lucas from New Zealand. Welcome, Lucas.
Thank you.
All right, Lucas, can you give me a little information about yourself? Where you grew up, what you did before Ukraine. Just give me a little insight on you.
So my name's Lucas Jameson. I'm 30 years old. I was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, on the east coast of Canada. Um, I was there for a bit, then moved to Manitoba, Canada, and then in 2008, my family decided to move down here to New Zealand. I came down. I was here for a year. Went back to live with my dad, who's back in Nova Scotia, with him for a year. Back to New Zealand again, finished high school, and as I was finishing, I turned 18 and I applied to the Canadian Army twice online. But figuring that, I would just be a name in a list on a computer screen and that it probably wouldn't do me any good, I decided to move back to Canada to apply for a third time in person. So I went back and stayed with my dad. I went to the recruitment office probably 3 times a week at least for a month or two until they told me to fuck off and just call. And it ended up taking me a year to get in the army because I lived outside of the country. I needed police background checks, all this extra crap. But eventually I did. I did get in, and I got in as infantry, like I hoped, because when you do the what you want to do for the army, you have to do like the first role you want. If you don't get that, the
Yeah,
second, third,
we
and I
have
put
kind of the
infantry.
same.
Yeah, for all three, and they didn't like that. So I infantry, I don't know, artillery, whatever the combat thing. And eventually I was accepted for that. I originally wanted to be a fighter pilot because my dad worked for Air Canada, and as a kid, I would go into his hangar and smell the airplane, the engines, the oil, and I love planes. The F-22 Raptor was my favorite, still is. But because I moved between Canada and New Zealand a few times, I went from being the top of my class in math to just like moving the 2 times and adjusting. It kind of screwed that. So I figured plan B, infantry. So that's what I focused on. And so I got accepted, came back to New Zealand for a few months, just waiting for my intake date. And then only took 3 months. And then I flew back up. I went to basic training in Saint Jean, Quebec, and then over to Wainwright, Alberta for battle school, which is infantry training, um, where at the time I thought was really dumb. Part of our field training, which was in the winter the whole time, so like -20s, -30s, we had a 5-day trench warfare thing way out in the middle of nowhere where we had to dig in frozen sand and clay and stand there all night, revet the trenches. And I was there one night freezing my ass off, and I was like, why the fuck are we doing this? Like, it's not World War One. Totally, not imagining I'm going to end up in Ukraine one day in a trench. So it was kind of ironic. Anyway, so I did that, graduated. I got posted to Shiloh, Manitoba in the PPCLI, that's my old, my dress uniform from them. I was only in there a couple of years because I struggled with depression quite a bit. So I got out a year early of my 3-year contract, which always really bothered me, and made me like never feel like an actual soldier. And at that time, 2014 to 2016 is when the initial Ukrainian issue started. And when I was still on base, we actually got a briefing by our battalion commander about Ukraine, and because we all just missed out on Afghanistan and we all wanted combat. So when we're getting the briefing, we're like, oh fuck man, we're going to Ukraine. It's gonna be sweet. Um, we didn't. Some guys did go to Western Ukraine to train with or train the Ukrainian soldiers as a deterrence show force, I suppose, which obviously didn't work. Anyway, so 2016, I get out of the army and I moved back to New Zealand, and I decide New Zealand's where I'm going to live the rest of my life because, I was tired of moving every 2 years for the last like decade. And then come 2022, February, when I heard that they're now accepting former soldiers from around the world to volunteer in Ukraine, I thought like, fuck yeah. Um, so I called the Ukrainian embassy in Australia, and they sent me this very generic email, like form to fill out, like because back then at the beginning of the full war, you had to be former military to volunteer. You couldn't be a civvy. So I did the paper, which is really simple. And then I was just told, okay, there's this point on the Polish-Ukrainian border. You have to cross the border there and find a white tent, and that's all they told me. So I booked a ticket. I flew up to Warsaw, got a train down to the area, past the border, because I had military gear. Me and these two, I think Chinese or South Korean guys were in the tiny little building too, going through border security. And because they saw I had gear, they only had a backpack, which baffled me. The military people took us into this building and questioned us a bunch, really. Luckily for me, I had this Lansky sharpening kit for knives, and he loved it. So he just got me to sharpen his knife a bit, which kind of, I guess, put me on his good side. So I was cleared, and then I left the building. I found this little white, not even a tent. It was just like an awning, like a cover. Talked to the guys, and they're like, "Yep." And they took me and these two Asian guys to a vehicle, drove us over to this little school where we stayed the night, and then next morning they took us to another school to interview us, to see like what our military history was, this and that, and blah blah blah. Which I almost didn't pass because I didn't have my like honorable discharge papers with me. But
Yeah.
luckily, the guy that was interviewing me, I think he was Canadian, so he just asked me stuff about like PPCLI and the Canadian Army, which I answered, so he knew I wasn't bullshitting. So I passed. The other
It's like
guys
a
didn't because
re-enlistment
they
code kind of thing, like the American military has, like on our discharge paperwork. Like if you have a RE1A, that means you had you could re-enlist at any time if you wanted to, that you had an honorable discharge. So I guess they have codes. And if you know the codes, I
yeah,
guess
I didn't know
you're
that,
telling the
and
truth.
I tried to find those papers before I left my home here, but I couldn't find them. But I just thought, oh, fuck it. And luckily, because that guy questioned, he gave me the green light. Basically, told him like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not bullshitting. So I got approved. The other guys didn't because they didn't speak English well enough. Anyway, so I got moved over to this base where I had to do training, basic training, really. Um, so I was there for 4 or 5 weeks, and I passed. And all of us guys, we had this long trip across from far western Ukraine all the way to Kharkiv, where we got split up between the different battalions. Or actually, no, we went from the base there, sorry, up to Rivne, because this is only a month after the proper war actually started. So the first battalion of the Foreign Legion of Ukraine was only just being formed. So we got there and we became Charlie Company. So the first battalion was complete, and then we moved over to Kharkiv, where we got split up. And most of us, we went to this village east of Kharkiv called Molodova, which is on the western side of this very big vertical river, and the Russians were on the east side. And our job there back then, it wasn't assaulting. We were just there to defend the position
Yeah.
and stop them from crossing the river to advance on Kharkiv, which was a key city they really wanted. So we got there the first day. We were at the edge of the village where this really huge tree area started, and we were moving all our bags into all these different houses. And then me and my buddy from Chile, and his call sign Chile, we were walking back right as it was getting pretty dark to get our last two bags. And right as we got them at the edge of the trees, we were just walking back to the village, and then we just heard boom, boom. So we hit the dirt and we turned around, and right where we were standing above the trees, the Russians fired two white phosphorus airburst shells where we were. We're just like, holy fuck. It
Yeah,
was like,
white phosphorus is some quite some nasty stuff. So,
yeah, well, I just looked at that. I was like, hey, I thought that was illegal. So, but I was like, holy shit, that's fucking cool.
well,
Um,
thermobarics are too, but they use them as well. So,
oh yeah, they use everything now. They use gas and yeah, anyway. So we got back to our house and we were there. I think only I was there maybe a few weeks. Um, we were there maybe only 6 days, and we got shelled really bad. And two of our guys, one of them, my buddy from Germany, was unfortunately killed. He took shrapnel to his femoral and bled out. Um, and I was on this little 3-man recon team, so we kind of had more freedom. We go out in the trees and look around and do whatever we had to. Um, but like back then, the supplies weren't as good as now. It's not perfect now, but it wasn't. It was a lot worse back then. You know, the only thing they could give us like Turkish uniforms and whatever they could get their hands on. Um, and I was initially an RPK gunner, which I don't really consider it an LMG, but I was that. And then I swapped it out for an AK-74. Um, and we were just kind of getting tired because we are only given 4 magazines each, which like in firefights, practically fucking useless.
I mean,
So
it's
my
better to
platoon
not
ended up.
even start if you only got four magazines and that's it. That's really
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
sad
well,
that things of
it's crazy.
supply. I think it's a supply. The supply. I mean, and of course, the United States don't supply AK rounds, but it really is sad that they don't have enough ammo.
Yeah, it's there's more opportunity to like buy your own stuff now. There's less little military shops everywhere in Ukraine now, but back then we could not really leave the village. We couldn't buy our own stuff, and yeah, so half of my platoon ended up leaving because they're tired of not getting what we needed to be effective soldiers. Because back then we were all soldiers. Even when I left that interview initially, got to the first base, it was me and two of the guys, and there was only three of the guys there so far, and they were waiting to build up a platoon to move us up to Rivne. And when they found out I was Canadian, they're like, "Oh, cool, we have another Canadian here." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." And they come back from training. This guy comes in with a beard and full camel paint on his face, and I just look at him like, "The fuck, I know you." And it was my old really good bud from the Canadian Army from my base I hadn't seen since 2016. And years later, I moved back to New Zealand. Then I'm in this random ass spot in Ukraine, and I run into him. So it
Wow.
was kind of funny. And it was so back at the village, half of them left because they were tired of not getting what we needed. We had an MG3, and we were given a 240 one day. They took it back the next day, so we're like, okay, great. And when half of my platoon left, I said to like command, like, well, until we get more guys, because they just handed all their shit in, can I get more mags? Because while the platoon's not full, may as well give us the magazines we need. And they're like, no. So I was like, all right, well, that's fucking stupid. And I stayed a few more days, and then I had enough, and I went home. I was only there total 2.5 months the first time. But as soon as I got home, I regretted that I left, and I spent the next year trying to get the money to fly back to Poland because you know some people are going to Ukraine only from Germany or France or the UK. What is that like?
And then
Maybe a
you
400
got
euro.
somebody like yourself that's probably. I mean, I can't even imagine how long of a flight that is. Because I mean, I think the longest flight I've ever taken is was when I left Bagram coming back to the States, not even going from Japan back to stateside, but that flight from Afghanistan was just horrible getting all the way back to the States. Um, I can't even imagine though what it's like flying from New Zealand because I would imagine you have to fly what up
Two
to
connections.
like California or something.
Yeah, the first time I went to Ukraine, I went to San Francisco, um, and they lined my arriving flight to San Francisco and the departing one. The airline lined it up really shit. So by the time I got there, and then I was in security, I missed. They closed their check-in stuff because I had like nice knives and stuff. and they closed it like before I even got to the airport, so I couldn't check my bag in. I had to go through regular security like for carry on, and then of course I have these knives and stuff because I wasn't able to check it in, and I'm rushing to my thing. They're like, no, I had to go through all my fucking tightly packed bag. I took out this was it a K-Bar Recon Tanto knife and some other stuff. A Leatherman mutt, like the really expensive one, and they said they had to take it, and I was like losing my shit, and eventually like, man, just fucking take it, piss off. I got to the gate, I missed the flight, and I just like threw my bag into the floor as hard as I could. I was so pissed. And then from there, I flew to I think Frankfurt, because Frankfurt in Europe is like the
Yeah.
connection point, really. But I mean, I've flown between New Zealand and Canada, the east coast of Canada, tons of times. So those kind of flights aren't anything new to me.
It was about a
11 hour
15-hour flight,
layover.
right?
Um, from Auckland to Vancouver or Sydney to Vancouver is about 14 and a half. And then sometimes it'll be maybe a 5 hour layover, 9 hour, 16 hour. But I'm used to it. Um, yes. When I got the money finally to fly back, I was only able to get the money because my stepdad really helped me out. I was looking at getting a place to rent here, and he said, "Oh, I'll help you out with like $1,400 if you want." And I was like, "Oh, appreciate that." And then the next day, I just thought like, "Would it be okay with you?" And if I, instead of using it for an apartment, I used it for a flight back to Poland. He said, "Yeah." So I sold my car and took out every loan I could, and I flew back. I went from Auckland to Guangzhou, China, and then from Guangzhou we took off. Hour and a half into the flight, the right wing is dumping fuel somehow, so we had to go back and do an emergency landing. Blah blah blah. Had to wait a bunch of hours. Finally got another plane. We flew over to London Heathrow, where I ended up getting questioned by their like anti-terrorism unit because they saw I have like a plate carrier and all this stuff. But the guys that interviewed me were like, they were super chill. They understood I was going to Ukraine. Um, and another trouble flights there because I actually had to go to like Luton or some other airport,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have made it. So I got another thing, and I got to Poland and did the usual train stuff where it's awkward because I don't speak Polish and I don't know, like, oh, is this my train? Is this my train? And anyways, I eventually get back to Ukraine, and I was hoping, because my buddy I was on the recon team with was stayed there the whole time, and he was former Sri Lankan special forces
Yeah.
and like awesome soldier. I thought I could just join back up with my unit because I had already done the training. I'd already been to combat there. I am a former soldier. But they're like, no, you got to go to this other city. There's a new sign up process. And, I did that. And then I went back to Kharkiv, hoping I can just get back to my unit. But I was eventually told by multiple people, no, you have to do the training again, which pissed me off. But eventually, like, I was just waiting in a hotel for like almost 2 weeks, and I was bored. So I was like, oh, whatever, fuck it. So I went back west to the same base I was at before. I did the training again, and that's where when I met the platoon I was joining, that half of them were civilians. Like, I didn't know that they were accepting civilians now, which kind of baffled me, and I didn't like it. But once I started doing training with them, I didn't mind it really because, like, like, you're military, I was Army. We both know that just because someone got through basic and battle school and got posted doesn't mean they're not a retard.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of idiots that get through training. So I mean, like, so I was like, to be fair to them, just because these guys are from military and you're not, doesn't mean actually that they're any better than you. And some of the civilian guys I met there, one of them was an American EMT, no military training. Sorry, brother, just get me a coffee. Thanks, man. He was absolutely solid. Because like, being a soldier is not like a complicated job, really. You just have common sense. I joined their training when they were a good couple weeks into it, but the instructors, they didn't mind because I already had experience, and the training's pretty. It's only 4 or 5 weeks. It's it's not crazy in depth. You know, fire team movements, squad movements, trench clearing, grenades, stuff like that. Um, Although, like the training schedule when we were there, I thought was really dumb because every day was laid out, and they had like rifle range, this and that, and then the next day was supposed to be machine gun training, which, as half these guys are civilians, they definitely fucking need it. But they updated the schedule before that next day. They got rid of machine gun training, and the very last day of our training was Stinger training, and they kept that. So it baffled me that, like how many of us foreign soldiers are going to get a Stinger in the East versus
I
a
think I
machine
would
gun?
much rather have a machine gun than to have a Stinger because it's I can't speak for what or how often you guys would see planes, but I don't know. I know that where I was living or staying in Kiev at the time before we came home, about maybe 2 months in, we had a MiG that had got shot down and crashed about a half mile from our where we were at. And
Oh yeah.
it's, you know, to think that a lot of the damage that is happening to some places is from things getting shot down. I mean, there's no alternative. I mean, you have to shoot it down or it's going to cause more damage.
Yeah, or it'll get to its intended target, and yeah, like regardless, people unfortunately get hurt. But I mean, if it hits the street or some hopefully small you know area of impact, that is still lesser than if they hit a fucking airfield,
Yeah,
especially when things in Ukraine are so limited. Not that Russia cares. I mean, they, you know, most everything I've seen, like when I was in Kiev, like I sent you those videos, it got hit every couple nights I was there. The first day
yeah.
I got back to Kiev to redo this disability commission report, I just got to the hospital. I was sitting outside it, and there was this bunch of explosions, and one of them was like right above me. It was something I think was shot down, and as soon as there was the blast, you just hear ding. So it was like shrapnel that flew close, and all the nurses came out the building to like get inside, and like I was like, no, this is
I
fun.
don't think I
Like,
want to be inside a building, you know?
yeah, like I haven't been to the front line in months now. Like this is exciting. Like I want this. I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I love the explosions. The first night I was there, though, it freaked me out. I actually had a little moment. Um, but yeah, Russia just hits civilians and then they deny it.
You
I
know,
was in
and
hospital.
it really is crazy because they do deny so much. Um, they hit, I don't know if you, I mean, well, I know you've heard of it, Chernihiv, because that was like right north of Kiev. And Chernihiv was just a little bit north of, northeast of Pripyat, you know, where Chernobyl's at. But Chernihiv has been hit with cluster bombs, uh, residential areas, and cluster bombs are solely just people killers. They're not made to destroy buildings. They're not made to destroy vehicles. They're made to destroy people. And they were dropping cluster bombs in Chernihiv. I mean, and
Yeah.
that just blows my mind that the West didn't immediately get involved with that, or the white phosphorus like you guys were experiencing, or the thermal barracks, which all these are illegal now. So
As
it's,
we've seen, though, all that stuff like these are illegal. That's only as good as someone enforcing it or opposing consequences.
well, I mean, I guess what it takes balls to enforce. And I would say that so much of our nobody, I guess everybody doesn't want World War III, but we're literally at the back, or and not the back door, more the front door of it now. Um, I think all it's going to take is one more country in Europe to become involved that's already in NATO or already in EU, and that's when it starts. Um, they have been a
With
lot of drones.
dumb countries like Russia, um, they're like the perpetual victim. Like this May 9th military parade, and all the idiots on their like propaganda show, they're like, oh, if they hit this, and like they word Ukraine striking Russia as like terrorist attacks, and it's like the fucking insane irony and obliviousness of it. Like it is baffling. I was in hospital in Ukraine when that children's hospital got hit, and my fire team buddy, who was actually in Kiev, he went there to help out. And then
Oh
again,
yeah.
they just deny everything they say. I don't
Yeah,
know why they
they
waste
always
their
use the
time. No
excuse,
one
we were
believes them.
shooting something else. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
no one believes them. Like Lavrov, that fucking goat looking dude. Like it's baffling. Like why they bother opening their mouths when no one believes them. Like yeah, they'll deny it because they always do. And then if they get hit back, they're the victim. It's a terrorist attack. Uh, oh man,
I
it's just
think
fucking.
eventually, I believe eventually, and I don't know how long this will have to continue, but I believe a lot of the Russian people that are in Russia that want to travel the world that can't, uh, a lot of people start getting involved, and maybe if they have the courage to stand up to the government, then maybe the people in charge will get rid of Putin. Because I mean, there's the people in charge are the ones with the money. It's the same thing like with Ukraine. Um, I really won't
It
discuss
seems like
too much about that.
it seems like the Russian people, like they're not all bad. I know that, but like for a lot of like civilians, I find they only start to complain like when it starts to affect them. Like they actually like no empathy for what's happening to Ukrainian civilians every single day, like which I've seen, and it's like depressing as hell. Um, like one of the last places I was at in Kharkiv was an amputee kind of clinic, and it was the first, not quite hospital, but place with doctors and beds and shit. The first place I've been to where it wasn't solely military personnel, and like there was a bunch of civilians there. There were two teenage boys that lost a leg each. There was this woman, maybe in her 40s. She lost her leg all the way up to the hip, just from I don't remember what she said hit her. It was like a missile impact nearby, and that was it. There's Bucha. I had this fucking idiot on Facebook on this Russian military page, which I try and troll all the time because I would kill every one of them if I could. And he's like, oh, Bucha was all faked and all this stuff. And it's like, you fucking cuck. At the beginning of the war, there was like endless videos of Russians
Oh,
straight firing on civilians. There was
yeah.
that old person in a car, a couple, and you just see it was like a BMP-1 or something, and it just fired right into the windshield and killed them. Like there's videos that you can't deny it, but they'll still, no, it wasn't us. Oh, it's a false flag, or it was Ukraine, and you can't reason with people like that. And then this now thing in Turkey, and Putin's not going to show up because he's a little coward, and obviously nothing came of that, or will if it's still going on. And
I,
then
I don't agree with
Trump with
what
this
they're
no
doing.
deal from Ukraine. Sorry.
I don't agree with what they're doing. They're trying to force Ukraine to give up land. And
Yeah,
I
that they claim is theirs now.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, and it's not. The thing is like, we had a group of people came or had come here to Alabama, and one of them was a Georgian that was in the Ukrainian army. And then there was a girl that had been working at a bank on Wall Street that was from Ukraine. She quit her job after February 24th of 22 and went to Ukraine to become a medic. Um, So I mean, but this Georgian made a really good statement. It's like, if someone come into your house and said, "I want this room, move your stuff out of it," are you going to give it to them? And if you do, what's to stop them from taking another room and another room? Or what's to stop them from taking your wife, your family members? It doesn't stop with one place. I mean, it continues and it
yeah,
continues.
it's blatant that they're not going to stop either. I mean, what are they doing in the Baltic? They're always harassing people, and their version of like a peace deal or peace talks is to just for Ukraine to surrender and give them the win. Like they're limitlessly arrogant to think, that they just say this stuff and it'll be agreed, um, and then cry and play the victim when they get hit back. Although Ukraine actually strikes legitimate targets like the oil refineries,
Oh yeah.
air bases,
I mean, to me,
so on and
those are
so
some
on.
of the most important targets. I mean,
That's
when
their
you're
money.
killing women, children, and families and destroying children's hospitals, what are you really accomplishing? All you're doing is adding more fuel to the fire and more hatred for future, I mean, for hundreds of years towards your own people because of what crimes you're committing now. It's just really absurd.
Well, they don't value life. That's why they have these endless meat attacks, because they don't give a shit about their people in the end. Same as like the movie Enemy at the Gates. If you retreat, we'll have a what's called a block party or something, and we'll kill you. Um, and then you see the POWs that are swapped for Russian POWs, and you see how our POWs come back, what condition they're in, and they're just miserable people. And you know, it pisses me off incredibly. Like when I was in high school here at which is like a couple hundred meters right to my right here, high school called Anihang High. It's spelled like one hunga. I was actually trying to learn Russian to teach myself for years, which is like the ironic thing. Um, but now, no, fuck that. I want to learn Ukrainian, and I want to go back again. I'd like to go back now and fight again for a third time if I could, but my hands just they won't let me shoot left-handed. So, but I'm definitely going back one day to maybe buy a house because it's like I've been back and forth the country probably at least a couple, few dozen times, and it's beautiful. The people
I
are
mean,
awesome.
I
They
mean, I
sell
was there
alcohol
for 7 years.
stations.
Yeah, it's the people are amazing. Most people just don't realize it. They always think, I mean, because my generation, when I was growing up, I was growing up and going to high school during Soviet Union time. Uh, so the mid '80s. Uh, that kind of explains how old I am, I guess. But anyway, so going through school and studying world history, we didn't study like all the countries that were involved in the Soviet Union. We just all the Soviet Union, you know, main city for Soviet Union, Moscow. They don't talk about Kiev. They don't talk about uh, all the like all the other capitals.
Minsk or something,
What's that?
like Minsk or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's still under Russian control actually. But I mean,
Oh, yeah, Lukashenko was his little lapdog.
yeah, and it's that's where the people came down through that were moving from Belarus. They moved through Chernobyl, strangely enough, coming in to go to when they started paratrooping the guys into Bucha and Irpin, they were starting to move in from the north through Belarus. And really what was most amazing about the stupidity and the ignorance of these Russian soldiers is they were digging foxholes in the Red Forest in
Yeah,
Chernobyl.
I
And
remember
I'm
that.
like,
I
I
have a
can
lot of
remember
really funny memes and like kind of caricatures of that. Yeah, I
it's a
remember that.
scary place actually. Me and my wife went there in 2021, August of 21 for 3 days. And when you're driving in a van through the Red Forest, the tour guide says, I got us a private tour, so we would have more time doing things. I could fly my drones and make videos and things. And when we're going through the Red Forest, he said, roll the windows up. He said, this place here is not good. And you could hear the Geiger counter going off. And I'm thinking, either those guys that were digging holes there were just really, really stupid, or they were
Commander
doing what they
Scrolls.
were told and just didn't have or didn't know how to say no. Because I know in our military, I mean, back in my time, you can disobey a lawful order. Of course,
Yeah.
you could get court-martialed, but the military now, a lot of them would just say, "I quit, goodbye." I mean, I mean, a lot of them now are probably too sensitive. I mean, I think we'll toughen up now over the next 4 years, but yeah, those Russians, I feel bad for the ones that actually were just following orders. Uh, I mean, in some ways, because if most of them will probably end up dead of radiation if they haven't already died from other
Uh,
means.
that long ago, I'd bet everything I own that they're all already dead anyways. The only sympathy I have for like Russian soldiers, the little I could possibly have, would only be for conscripts because they have no choice. Obviously, you can't say no to an assault because there's how many videos of them where they stick them in holes, they beat them, they chain them to trees, all this stuff. So like for the ones that were forced to go there, I can have some sympathy for them. But everyone else, I I hope they're all killed. I couldn't care less about them, especially after like everything we've seen them do, how they treat our captured,
Oh yeah.
how
I
they
mean,
execute them. They're just I have no sympathy for
did
them.
you see
You're in
the
this country,
one where
you die.
did you see the one video that was floating around that I guess the Russians or someone who made the video, they leaked this video. They had castrated a Ukrainian soldier and they filmed it and they put it on a I guess a Telegram channel. Uh,
Yeah,
but the Ukrainian special forces or their SBU or whatever, they when they got this video, they actually tracked down the people involved and they were assassinated. So,
very sad. But yeah, I didn't see like the whole video of that because I didn't really want to see it. Like I watch Ukraine death compilations like every day, like only of Russians being killed. I never get tired of it because like all the stuff that they've done, stuff like that, um, messing with soldiers who are clearly, not a threat anymore, and they're just laughing and they shoot them, or those guys that cut their heads off and put them on pikes, and so on and so on. Um,
in the very beginning, they all had documentation. Um, the Ukrainians, because I was on the channel, I think it was on Telegram, that they they were taking photos of the face of the dead Russian soldier with their documents, and it basically was not to be morbid. It was because the Russian people were being told that nothing was happening, and this is basically so the mothers of these
they're
soldiers.
MIA and they don't get a payout.
I mean, but they're not getting much. I think they're getting like $150. I mean, it's like, you
A
know,
sack of potatoes.
or even possibly a bottle of vodka or something. Um,
Well, it used to be that they got a lot. I think. I don't think they even do that anymore because, like, I mean, I don't think Lada's that big of a company that they can produce. I don't know, like 600,000 Ladas or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's all a joke.
the thing is how many people are they going to send? And I mean, I know Ukraine doesn't post the dead count for Ukrainian soldiers or people fighting for Ukraine, but they've kept a pretty good count of the Russians, and they're
Yeah, almost at a million.
excuse me, they're close to 1 million right now.
Yeah, although that does include like wounded and everything too, like 300s, which is wounded, 200s that are killed. That's not all dead, but I mean a very big portion of that are
Yeah.
kills.
I
Um,
want to show a couple photos. I guess I don't know where you're located at in these photos. I'm going to try to do this. Uh,
yep.
I I really had a problem with actually doing it earlier, but I think now I might be able to do it.
That was the night we were getting ready to go out on the mission where I got hit. So that would have been maybe 2 hours before we mounted up into pickup trucks and drove out to position.
Oh, so this is right before your injury then.
Yeah, yeah. That was when we were all getting prepped to head out that night. We did a night infill. We stepped off right at the very first bit of daylight, and
Yeah.
then a couple hours later, we all got schwacked. We call that mission the schwackening because it was like 9 to 11 of us got injured. Some bad, like two of the guys lost legs. One of them that lost a leg that I was trying to help save. I think like, he had some bad blood, I guess, get back up into his system, and he's now blind, deaf, can't speak, just like a vegetable, unfortunately. This photo was behind our CP, which was a couple of houses down from the house where we stayed at, and we figured it was an S-300 missile that hit. So I think they were trying to hit our CP, but they missed. They hit the backyard, and then behind me there, and then I think off to the left is two Ukrainian houses that got mostly destroyed. And yeah, it was just this big crater. So this was the beginning of the worst week that I was in Ukraine because that week we took a lot more hits like that. 2 days after that, we hit a cruise missile that two houses next to my house flew too low and hit a tree and basically air detonated. I was awake at like midnight, just staring up at my ceiling, and then you just hear, boom, this huge explosion, and it hit a tree, obliterated this wall. Buddy in our company was in this tiny little caravan. He was sleeping in it, crushed it in on him. He survived. I was told he was just, I guess, dazed, walking in the dirt street in his underwear, asking if people have seen his phone because I get he was just out of it, I suppose.
Oh wow. So this is
That's
your
just my
normal everyday loadout, correct?
Yep. With that paint on my gun, I think that would have been the more recent one. I usually try to carry only 40 round PMags, which, like, most of the stuff we paid for ourselves, except guns and ammo. Everything else, you get some stuff issued, but pretty much everything we made, because you do get paid fighting there. We spend it on what we need to be effective, really. So, like, for anyone that thinks like we're there to make money, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it costs us money. It costs us money to be there. Most of us quit our jobs. We still have bills at home. It's expensive to fly there. We, we there's not enough vehicles, so we buy our own vehicles. We do our own maintenance. We pay for everything. We mostly pay for ourselves.
Now, I'm gonna post all the videos that you sent. Well, probably all of them. I may shorten some of them down. Maybe I'll just leave them as they are. But the one video you said where the drone got uh, a good shot of you shooting someone, I guess a Russian soldier. Is this right
Yep.
here, this grenade launcher underneath of what you shot that guy with, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So that's the HK 320 40 mic grenade launcher. We only had HEDP rounds, which is high explosive dual purpose. So like an RPG or a shape charge.
Yeah.
It blows up. It's got fragmentation, but it's also got a very small little shape charge. So in the video of the Russian taking that to his forehead, you can see, like you can with RPG impacts, you can see that instant smoke trail, and that's the little
Okay.
molten jet shape charge, blowing through.
All right, now I'm going to go to the photos of your injury, and I want you to explain to people what happened, okay?
Yep.
If I can get them to.
So that my right knee, on the Schwackening, when we were trying to get the last guy out, we were pinned down really heavy by artillery fire, and I think mortars. I figured it could have been an automatic mortar, like that four-shot one Russians have, and we just couldn't move. And there was this very tiny break in it. And at the time, I was a squad commander, and I was trying to coordinate with some Ukrainians who were also in cover with us to find a closer exfil point because our exfil point was 5 kilometers away. And when there was that tiny break, I told everyone, okay, we got to fucking move now. We can't just wait. So we all got out, got to the guy. and we're just trying to move him onto a soft stretcher. And then, with no incoming sound or warning, huge explosion. We figured it was artillery. And then, so I took that piece of shrapnel to my kneecap, but I guess, because it was my kneecap, it wasn't able to penetrate, so it bounced off. Um, so I'm told now I need surgery on my knee still because the tissue underneath my kneecap is damaged. I've been told. So
Now, I'll tell you
still need to get that.
the reason I want to share your images like this is because to show what happened to you and to show that you still have this desire to go and help. And I think most people have no concept of the desire that you have right now. This is your what arm?
My right arm.
So
So you can still see right in the inside of my elbow the full pack of hemostatic gauze. I was still in there, and this would have been like 2 days after the blast. So I'm still packed.
so that's still this is like 2 days after, and it's you still haven't
Yeah.
been stitched up or anything.
No, no. So that was the first time I actually saw my arm like that. It was wrapped up in bandages pretty heavy, and I was like, "Hey, can I get my bandages changed, please?" Because they're pretty saturated. And as he's peeling the bandages off, I just start to see at the base of my palm, like it's opened up, and he's peeling the bandages off like that were stuck to my muscles. I was just like, "Oh, that fucking hurts."
Now
It was
this,
cool to see, but
but
yeah, it
this
hurt.
is a few days after, I'm imagining, or a couple of weeks after, maybe.
That would have been when I was in Landstuhl, Germany. I got transferred there for better care. So my whole arm is still like opened up, but they did, it's not as butterfly open anymore. So they packed, like the opening with that foam, and then they kind of seal with the plastic, and then there's that tube that goes in to a pump I was hooked up to for like maybe 2 months, where it draws out like all excess fluids and it helps it heal better. But my arm wasn't stitched up yet. I don't think they just would operate on me every week, swap the bandages, everything, make sure the tissue's not dying, that kind of thing, until I could actually have the
So you went to the
proper
military
surgery.
hospital that the Americans have in Landstuhl?
Yeah, yeah. So after I got hit, I was moved from where was in Donetsk to a hospital in Dnipro, which is where that photo of my arm opened up, where I
Yeah.
was. Unfortunately, in that photo, you can't see to my left. There was this gorgeous blonde Yuki nurse, a 10. And it was in Dnipro there, and then we got moved onto this medical train, and it was just a huge train with just bunk, 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 bunk of injured dudes, and actually ended up running into two of my buddies, I think, on that train. Um, and they had these like improvised piss bottles on there. It was just like a big Coke bottle, jaggedly cut at an angle for us to use as a piss bottle. I thought was hilarious. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not sticking that against my balls. So then we
It's a
got to
little bit
Kiev.
dangerous. Yeah.
And, we got unloaded at Kiev, and there was probably like 30 ambulances, shoulder to shoulder, unloading everyone. And I was in one of the main military hospitals in Kiev for a few weeks. And then my squad commander, he mentioned that his sister worked at Landstuhl. She was a soldier, is a soldier, and she helped me fill the paperwork out, and I was approved for a transfer to go to Landstuhl. So, pardon me. So an ambulance crew came, picked me, one other guy from that hospital, and then second ambulance got two more guys from another hospital, and we had a 44-hour drive from Kiev across Ukraine through Poland to wherever Landstuhl is in Germany. So it was
Yeah.
a long drive.
I lived near there for almost 6 years. It's if anybody knows where Frankfurt's at, it's about an
About
hour.
an hour away.
Huh?
It's about an hour away because
Yeah.
when I eventually moved to oh sorry, charge my phone. When I eventually got moved to Canada, because even Lonsdale, they said the damage was too severe, and they didn't have the means to fix it. Um, eventually, sorry,
That's all right.
charge my phone. So eventually, this guy came by, and he gave me a drive to Frankfurt, which was interesting because like Lonsdale is all hilly and forest and it was beautiful, as we're driving to Frankfurt, I was just looking in these forests and stuff and just thinking like, oh man, because it was kind of like wet and damp and all the wet leaves on the thing. And I was like, it would have fucking sucked to fight here in the 40s, like with the gear they
Yeah,
would have had. That's all I could think
it's
about.
I living there. I lived in, oh gosh, I can't even remember the village names. I lived in Neuenkirchen on Pottsburg, which is outside of Ramstein Air Base. Krickenbach, which is right outside of Kaiserslautern. Um, and one other place, but for the life of me, I can't remember. That's been a long, long time ago. My
Yeah.
daughter actually was born in Landstuhl Hospital.
Oh, okay. My ex, who I was dating here in this house, was from Cologne, which I think wasn't super far away.
What's that now?
My ex-girlfriend was actually from Cologne. I dated her here in New Zealand, but she was actually home back in Cologne, which I don't know how far away it would have been, like maybe a few hour drive.
Yeah, I went to Cologne maybe two times.
Hmm.
But that's been, like I said, so, so long ago. I mean, I
Yeah.
think about two, but yeah. Um, so what does your family think about you even starting this, years ago, back in 22? What do they think about it?
Um, what my mom, I think, mostly understood me wanting to go. Um, and I think my dad understood too, but it was, I think, more worried because between me being in Ukraine the first time and then especially being back home and wanting to go back again, I've had some people like say to me like, "Why would you? Why would you go there? It's not your country." Which when I hear like that, it just like fucking instantly pisses me off. It's like, who, fuck, so what? It's not my country. What does it fucking matter? Like I became a soldier to try to defend innocent people. Like, what does it matter if it's my country or someone else's? That's my responsibility as a soldier. So when I heard that question, like it just pisses me off, and at the same time, I don't understand the ignorance of like even why you would ask the question. Um, I don't know. That's like wanting to go back again. Like I still have one hand, I can walk, so why shouldn't I go back? It's just I don't know. Thinking by some people, I don't understand how they think like that.
Oh, fuck. Oh, you fucking whore. Tree line's close.
Yep.
We're at the end, really. This is where it opens up. This is the end.
We're almost at the end, boys.
If we get closer, the vertical's going to engage us. This is where it opens up. The very last bit's really...
Get down, for Christ's sake.
The very last bit of this tree line's fucking, you know...
Yo, watch where you're fucking throwing that shit. That's almost on us. Yo, let's push up. Max, don't you? Come on, move it around. Can you find a pallet? Eric,
Eric, we're going behind you.
we're done here. Help us hold here. Here.
There's no cover.
Is it the end?
Yeah, this is where it kind of gets really like faint and shallow. Tree line's right there, like 300, 400 meters.
Guys, we're done here.
Let's get the fuck out of here. There's no cover.
Get a hole. Let's see if they come relieve us. Let's
Who?
go back to the hole. Let's take
Who's
the
relieving
bunkers.
us?
Let's take the bunker. All right. Hold on.
I didn't hear about it being relieved.
Don't let the position alone.
Oh, hey.
2 o'clock, right? Yeah, I got calm. I don't got calm.
They're probably in their trenches fucking just waiting, paranoid. All right, who's waiting for the word to get out of here, or who's relieving us?
We don't know. I hear fucking voices.
You're good. Fucking foot's sinking in.
Boys, it's 2 o'clock. What? Boys, it's 2 o'clock.
Any eyes on drones?
Negative. Hey, I'm gonna throw a frag. They're gonna burn your grenade. We're at the end of the tree line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the guys are in the another tree Eric! Eric! Yeah, but they're gonna...
Okay, we need to get on comms. We can't fucking sit here.
Eric! Over there! Where's the voices? He's gonna hit enemy. Stop movement! Go back to Foxhole! Take cover! Order from Kenobi! Let's go! Go back, take cover! Foxhole, we're moving!
Reloading!
Hey, get low when you're reloading. Follow Eric. Yeah. Go back, need to cover in the retreat, guys. On the left side.
Whoa!
You're not supposed to be in the
Hey! Reloading!
Drop ammo, go back to Foxhole.
Okay, let's keep moving! Let's go! Last 2 mates!
Moving back.
Eric!
Over there. Foxhole.
What? Fuck. Eric, come on!
Go back to Foxhole. You a damn very good now? I'm happy. I'll get out of here. Are these clear?
I smell death.
Yeah, one dead or here. Which horn are they? We're shaking, guys. Decide now.
Say what?
These are the holes.
What?
Hey, left. Yeah. These are the holes they want us to take.
They're full of dead guys.
Whatever holes we can find. There's more holes coming. Let's take the code. Let's take the ones closest to the edge of the tree line.
Whoa.
So we don't have to retake this again. Alright, well, I'm getting over there.
Whoa, you good? All right, get in, get in, get in.
Gotta be wary of mine, man.
Man, people and dead rats smell the exact same.
Hey, find a hole.
All right,
Hey, let's go.
get in, get in.
Even Romeo got that one motherfucker that was hiding in the bush. Find a hole.
You saw him drop? Nice.
I can double tap him.
It's just like a couple guys here on their own, man. Fuck. The gun just stuck in there. Oh, it's all bent and fucked. Oh, that got hit by RV or something. So are we fucking holding here or what? Ah, fucking cunt foot stuck.
Fucking animals.
Maybe pop.